By the 1840s, a major migration westward was underway in the United States, fueled in part by stories of gold being discovered on the West Coast.
Not just a few people, but tens of thousands of people were moving west in massive droves. We today can't even imagine anything like the wagon trains that were stretched across the plains and the prairies in the 1840s and throughout the 50s.
One of those young pioneers seeking riches was 21-year-old Joel Turney, who left Columbus, Ohio, with hopes for a better life and $50 in his pocket. By the time Turney got to Trenton, Iowa, a small town and popular waypoint for immigrants heading west, his money was gone and his dreams cut short.
So here he is in Trenton, Iowa, and nobody knows his name. Nobody's ever heard of Joel Turney, but he's got some experience with blacksmithing, and he can see that there's actually an opportunity to make a pretty darn good living.
So he set up a blacksmith shop and was getting a lot of work from the people that were headed west and fixing their wagons, and so he decided to build some of his own.
Well, his timing was dead on because he figured out how to catapult himself into an industry that was literally commanding the pulse of this country.
By 1856, Joel Turney began making stronger wagons designed for longer journeys and built to be easier on people's horses. He named it after a 500-year-old tree, recognized around the country as a symbol of strength, durability, and American independence. The Charter Oak Wagon.
I suppose in those days, if you paid $83 for a wagon, you expected a good one. Well, Charter Oak wagons were set apart from other wagons by their quality of the oak and hickory, and also in the metal strapping that was used to reinforce these items. This led to rugged construction and less maintenance and upkeep to the Turney wagons.
Very quickly, people would determine who was reliable, who built the quality product, who would stand behind that product, and that was Joel Turney.
People that wanted to travel and wanted something that endured, they chose the Charter Oak wagon. The Charter Oak brand became the Model T of the wagon world. High quality, didn't break down, easy on horse flesh.
That was important because farmers or ranchers or people traveling west, they didn't want something that wore their animals out. That animal was the lifeblood. It's like running out of gas. You know, if you kill your animal, if you injure your animal, if they pull a muscle, then you've created a problem. So the easier that wagon is to move and maneuver, the more life you're going to give to your livestock.
So actually it was quite phenomenal. He was able to grow that business and eventually made approximately 500 to 600 wagons a year.
For almost 25 years, Charter Oak Wagons prospered in Trenton, Iowa. Joel Turney was especially proud to work alongside his firstborn son, Clayton, now an accomplished blacksmith and wagon maker.
As his son Clayton got older, Clayton seemed to become his right-hand man. And the leaders of Fairfield had been courting Joel with the promise of tax abatements and the railroads for several years about moving the business to Fairfield. They didn't want Mount Pleasant to get it. They wanted that business. So Clayton's thinking, yeah, that was probably becoming a good idea. In 1886, Joel's son Clayton suddenly dies. This is devastating, not only from the business standpoint, from the personal standpoint. To lose a son and carry on in those times was hard. Joel thought, hey, my son had a good idea, I'm gonna do it, even though he's not with me.
If you've got aspirations to build thousands of these wagons per year, you've got to be somewhere where you can not only market them, but you can ship them and you can get access to the raw materials.
Due to the railroad coming through Fairfield, both east-west and north-south lines, it made shipping things in and out so much more efficient. Joel moved his wife Sarah and their two younger sons to Fairfield, established a home, and the business took off.
So when Joel Turney moved to Fairfield, not only did the scope of the job expand, but the scope of opportunity expanded. He had new trade routes to try to establish. He had new resources he had to try to acquire so that he could build a manufacturing empire that would be able to sustain not just his family, but countless others. And so he has more employees. He's got wheelwrights, he's got woodworkers, he's got painters, he's got stripers, he's got all this mix of talent.
Once established in Fairfield, Joel Turney turned the day-to-day operations of the business over to his son Ellsworth, who managed it with the help of brother Dylan and J.D. Montgomery. By 1902, Turney's 100,000 square foot factory produced nearly 6,000 wagons a year.
At one time, with 80 employees in the Turney wagon factory, they were the biggest employer in Fairfield.
Joel Turney made sure that each one was built not just able to do a job, but that it would sustain itself for years and years and years. Think about that. How many of us keep a car or a truck for 50 years?
The factory in Fairfield continued to produce thousands of wagons throughout the 1920s, but by the end of that decade, it became obvious a new day was fast approaching.
There are a lot of things that come and go, but transportation never stops. Between the automobile and the Great Depression, that pretty much took all the wind out of the sails of an industry that had once commanded the entire pulse of this nation. The Charter Oak Wagon Company survived longer than most manufacturers. They had a longer run than most ever hoped to have.
From the 1880s until the 1930s, what a tremendous boost for the economy of the area.
In June of 1905, Joel Turney died at his Fairfield home on West Hempstead Avenue at the age of 87.
The story of Joel Turney coming from Ohio as a young man, the hard work, the opportunities all combined to make him a leader of Fairfield.